Parshas Va'era. Okay, last week we discussed Moshe Rabbeinu throwing down his mata and it becoming a nachash. So let's start off again with a nachash in Parshas Va'era. HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs Moshe. Actually, he instructs Moshe to instruct Aaron that when they come in front of Paroi, they should throw down a mata and it will become a nachash. He uses the word tanin here for reasons that the Mefarshim discuss, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. But a tanin is a form of a nachash. Moshe and Aaron come in front of Paroi. They do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. Aaron throws down the mata. It becomes a nachash. Paroi calls the chachamim, the mechashvim, and they also make their matos turn into nachashim. So, vayivla mata Aaron es matoisam. The mata of Aaron swallows all of their matos. So Rashi says here, very, very interestingly, vayivla mata Aaron me achar shechozar v'naaseh mata bola es kulan. Even though it came back, all the nachashim turned back into matos, and then as a mata, the mata of Aaron was boileya all the other matos. This type of thing, where you have a miracle that takes place, and then there's a miracle within the miracle, is called a Neis b'seich Neis, where it's a miracle enough if one of the nachashim would have swallowed up all the nachashim, but it's a Neis b'seich Neis, that it turned back into a mata, and uncharacteristic of matos, it swallowed up all the other matos. The question is, what is the function here of a Neis b'seich Neis? Now, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is...
Isn't that two separate Nisim?
Let me get this out. We'll talk about it after. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is setting up Moshe Rabbeinu to interact with Klal Yisrael and with Paroi, so Perek Vav Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe v'al Aaron vayitzaveim el b'nei Yisrael. He commands them to Klal Yisrael, ve'el Paroi melech Mitzrayim, and to Paroi, l'hoitzias b'nei Yisrael mi'eretz Mitzrayim. So Rashi says there was a tzivui to Klal Yisrael, meaning a tzivui regarding his behavior with Klal Yisrael, and a tzivui to Paroi, meaning how he should behave with Paroi. With Klal Yisrael, the command was that he should treat Klal Yisrael benachas. He should treat Klal Yisrael gently. He should be soivel them. He shouldn't get impatient with them. And with Paroi, he was commanded to be chelek kavod lamalchus, that he should respect the malchus of Paroi. And again, as we've said so many times before, this is not like random derech eretzes that the Torah has to record. This is part of the process of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We want to understand how these instructions fit into the mahalach here of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So, I want to go back to last week. Last week I said over this ha'ara about when Moshe Rabbeinu threw down the mata and it turned into a nachash, and I said then that I heard this from my Rosh Hashiva, and that I didn't know where I had it written down, but I remembered it very clearly, and I said it over as best as I could, even though it was from a long time ago, and I was a little bit, I don't know if you noticed, a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that I couldn't find where it said it. Well, I found it. It was in my notes on Parshas Va'era, where my Rosh Hashiva did what I just did and said, let's go back to Parshas Shemais and discuss a ha'ara. I wrote it down 27 years ago. Okay, I wrote it 27 years ago after on a Matzah Shabbos, after I heard a Shal Shuzrim. I was already living back in America, just back in America, and it was a Shal Shudis in Brooklyn, which I attended, and I wrote it down Matzah Shabbos. And it was Baruch Hashem accurate, what I said. So just a chazer over briefly. that the pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to throw down the mata. Moshe Rabbeinu threw down the mata and it became a nachash. Vayonos Moshe, mipanav Moshe ran away from the nachash. He fled the nachash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, stretch out your hand, ve'echoiz biznavai. Grab onto its tail. And instead of saying, vayishlach yodai vayoichaz biznavai, which you expected to say, it says, vayishlach yodai vayechazek bai. Which we asked, why the change in Lashon? If it says, echoiz biznavai, it should say, vayoichaz biznavai. So we explained that the Rosh Hashiva said as follows, and this is a very, very yesodistic, and we're going to take it to the next level today. And the yesod is that I'm going to speak it out a little bit clearer today, just for the purpose of being able to extend it so we can understand it deeply. There are different koiches in the world. There are positive koiches in the world, there are negative koiches in the world. So you have let's think about, you have Klal Yisrael and the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the good things. And then you also have Amalek and Yishmael and all the other things. You have Iran and you have all the other koiches in the world that are negative. It's not the pshat. Even though on the surface it seems this way. On the surface it seems that there's different koiches in the world, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the most powerful of the koiches. He's the most powerful. He's more powerful than all those koiches hara. And certainly that's not an untrue statement. But the truth is really deeper than that. The truth is there are no koiches hara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is behind all of them also. They don't exist, shalei b'ritzaynai. This is something that the nations of the world have a very, very, very hard time with. Even the monotheistic religions do not understand this. That the HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not lose track of any of the Bria. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to reference other religions. But Hashem did not lose track or control of any part of the Bria. There exists evil in the world, and the evil is completely in the hands of Hashem, and it is a facade. And certainly the world we live in is a world where what we see are various koiches that are battling against each other. When we see Klal Yisrael attacked and so on and so on, we see koiches battling against each other. But the real emes is that there's only one Hashem Echad. And one Hashem Echad means that there aren't multiple koiches in the world. It's all one koich. There is only one koich. And that is the koich of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I explained last night on Leil Shabbos, you weren't there, Rav David? On Leil Shabbos, I explained that that's the pshat in the Zeh Shemi La'olam v'Zeh Zichri L'dar Dar. Is that dafka in the process of Yitzias Mitzrayim, there's a declaration that the Shem Havaya is read loikesha ani nichtav ani nikra. The Gemara says in Kedusha Natayin Aleph, loikesha ani nichtav ani nikra, because I'm nichtav yudke vavke, but I'm nikra adnos. What does that mean? I'm nikra, that's the Pashup Pshat. The Pashup Pshat is I'm the most powerful. Adnos is Odain. Hashem is the powerful one. That's the Pashup Pshat. But the nichtav, that's the deeper Pshat. And the nichtav is, there is no other, the Shem HaMiyuchad, the Shem of Hashem Echad, that He created the world, Haya Haiva V'yiyah, there's nothing else besides for Him. Emes Malkeinu, Efes Zulasei. Hu Elokeinu, Ein Oid. There's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu was unique among all of humanity, that he actually lived his life with that clarity. For the rest of humanity, it's our avodah to believe it, that's true. I'll give you a mashal just to clarify what I'm saying. The Gemara in Pesachim that says, "V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, b'yoyim hahu yiyeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad." On that day, la'ased lavai, Hashem will be one. On that day, Hashem will be one. Atu ha'idna lav Hashem echad. Is Hashem not one now? Where it says no. Now we say toivu meitiv and dayan ha'emes. Then we're only going to say toivu meitiv. Meaning, now we think there are multiple hanhagos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are hanhagos of chesed, there are hanhagos of din. But la'ased lavai, we're going to discover that even what looked like din was all part of Hashem's chesed. In a similar way, I'm saying similar, really it's very much the same. I'm saying that now it looks like there's multiple koiches in the world, and Hashem is maybe the most powerful of them, but the reality is that there is only one koich in the world, Hashem Echad. There's only one koich in the world, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to just say one more thing by way of explanation to understand what I mean by this mahalach. I told you that Moshe Rabbeinu lived, he only saw the Hashem Echad. But the Avos HaKadoshim, for example, Chaval al da'avden v'loy mishtakchen, they lived with emunah that was the case, even though they didn't see it. I want to give you an example of that. Yaakov Avinu meets Esav. He bows to Esav 7 times. Say Chazal, he was bowing to Hashem. He wasn't bowing to Esav. Let's not be childish about that. When it says that Yaakov was bowing to Esav, really he was bowing to Hashem. It wasn't some kind of, you thought I was bowing to Esav trick. I was really bowing to Hashem. That's ridiculous. That's childish. No, when it says that Yaakov was really bowing to Hashem, what he was saying was, Rabbeinu Shalom, you think I don't know that you're Esav? You think I don't know that when Esav is coming to attack me, it's really the Hashgachas Hashem? It's the Gzeira from Hashem? You think I don't know that this came from Hashem? So I'm bowing to Esav because I'm being machnia myself to the Ratzah in Hashem. You know, this is, I don't want to get into the political part of this conversation because it's not really relevant or naigeya, but, you know, there was this big question that that different parts of society asked after the Holocaust, that, you know, that Gedolei Yisrael, the Lashon that they always say is that they went like sheep to slaughter. You know, they didn't resist enough. I'm not getting into the psychology of it and the history of it, and a lot of the people that say things like that don't know the psychology of it or the history of it. But one thing that's important to understand is that Gedolei Yisrael often are misyaches on another plane. You're sitting here trying to figure out and judge them. You don't understand where they're coming from. They're seeing all this as manifestations of the Hashgacha. Now, what that means, how they should react, okay, Gedolei Yisrael have to decide that. But that's a big difference between us and them. We look at it, these guys are coming to get me. These guys are attacking us. That's how we look at it. The Gedolei Yisrael look at it, the Hashgacha is bringing this sakana to us. Oh yeah, these guys are the shliach of the Hashgacha in this case. But the understanding that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Moshe to have in the beginning of his mission is not just that Hashem is more powerful than the Ra, but that there is no Ra. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem said, stretch out your hand and grab onto its tail, and Moshe Rabbeinu stretched out his hand by Yichazek, but he took control over it. There's no separate Ra, and it became a Mata B'chapa, it became nothing, lifeless, meaningless, strengthless, nothing, Eitz Yavesh, because there's nothing there, it's smoke and mirrors, there's nothing there, there's only the Ratzon Hashem. Okay, if we understand that, so we could understand that Moshe Rabbeinu now is coming with this insight. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who has full clarity that there's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Any hisnagdos to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is ridiculous. Anything that exists besides for Malchus Shemayim is mius. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, 1 second, I want to warn you. Even though it's true that I was Megala, that Madrega to you, but you still have to be careful how you interact with the people that are not living with that hasaga. So vayitzaveh mel b'nei Yisrael. Klal Yisrael may not chap this so easily. Klal Yisrael needs you to lead them. Klal Yisrael needs you to show them. Like we spoke last week of Moshe Rabbeinu lifting up his hands to be mechazik the Yidden. Klal Yisrael needs you to be soivel them. Because Hagam, you are being given that das, that clarity. But Klal Yisrael needs a leader that's going to chap that they're not necessarily where he is. And even more so with Paroi Melech Mitzrayim. You look at Paroi Melech Mitzrayim like there's no Paroi Melech Mitzrayim. It's ridiculous. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Moshe Rabbeinu, you're right. But in Olam Hazeh, there needs to be structures of Malchus. The facade needs to exist. So even though you have Klal, you need to imagine you have a person that goes into a president's office, the Oval Office, or someone goes into a throne room of a king, and he's just such an erlicha person that he just doesn't feel like Sagura Mipnei. He's not afraid of anyone. So what do you think the right thing is? He walks in and sits down in the president's chair. No, he has to understand that even though you're not afraid, but these structures of kavod and malchus need to exist. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu just taught Moshe Rabbeinu, it's all garnished. Emes Malkeinu, Efes Zulase, Hu Elokeinu, Einod. HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to Moshe. There's paroi. What's a paroi? It's nothing. It's offer. It's nothing. Dust. Blow it off. It's nothing. No, but still, Vayitzavim El Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, Lachlei Kavod La Malchus. You still have to live within the confines of the facade that exists in Olam Hazeh to be Chayle Kavod La Malchus. This is the idea of the Neis B'Seich Nes. The Rosh Hashiva said this. This is the idea of the Neis B'Seich Nes. In other words, one level of Nes, or one Nes if you please, but one level of Nes is one is more powerful than the other. The double Nes is to say, not just that one is more powerful than the other, but no, I own both sides. I'm the Bailam of both sides. I'm the Tov, I'm the Ra. There's nothing else there. So the one snake could swallow up all the other snakes. That's, one is more powerful than the other. But that one mata swallows up all the other mata, he says there's nothing here. It's garnished. There's nothing here. And that's a level of Neis B'Seich Neis because there's two chidushim here. First of all, the Rabban Shalom is the most powerful. But second of all, it's not power over anything. It's all nothing. Emes Malkeinu, Efes Zulase. Hu Elokeinu, Ein Oid. And the emes is, rabbis say, that this is not the only Neis B'Seich Neis in Parshas Va'era. In the end of the Parsha, in Parshas Barad, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, Ki b'pam hazois. There's something unique about Parshas Barad, about Makas Barad. It's kaveh a certain madrega in the Makos. It's very, very unique. Could be next week. I'll say a little bit of a deeper mahalach on it, but there's a drama in what the pasuk says about Makas Barad that it doesn't say about any of the Makas. Ki b'pam hazois ani sholeach es kol mageifoisai el libcha. That's a power. I'm giving. Kol magei faisai. That means it's a very, very, very powerful makkah. There's something in it that incorporates all the makkah. Maskim, if it says such a lashon, there's something in this makkah that's like the totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's makkahs. I'm sending kol magei faisai, all of my makkahs. This one makkah is, I'm sending all of my makkahs. So you agree with me that there's something there that this represents the totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's makkahs. What is that? So the pasuk says that when the barad came down, the pasuk says, "Vayihi barad ve'esh mislakachas b'seicha barad." There was barad, the ice was falling, and there was flickering fire inside the ice. What does Rashi say? Mislakachas b'seicha barad. Zakt Rashi, neis b'seich neis. It was a neis within a neis. Ha'esh The first nace was that the barad fell, that these balls of ice were falling onto Mitzrayim, but there was a nace in the nace, that there was fire inside of them. Ha'esh v'habarad me'uravim, the fire and the ice were mixed together. V'habarad mayimhu. Barad, ice is, you didn't know, ice is water. How does fire and water don't usually mix? He says, "V'lasois ritzayin kainam," to do the will of their creator. Asu shalom beinayim, aisa shalom b'mraimav, v'yasa shalom aleinu. These two elements that are complete opposites of each other made shalom. What does that mean? What's the point here? Here too, there's a neis b'seich neis. The idea here is that something is revealed in the makkah of barad. There's a secret revealed in the makkah of barad that's unique of all the makkahs, and that is that what's revealed is it's all one. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Eish and Mayim are such different kaychas. They can't connect. You know when they could connect? When there's a Hashem Echad who's shaylit equally on both of them, telling them what to do. Then there's no stira between them. So there too, there was a neis b'seich neis. Not only is the good vanquishing evil, but there is no evil. Not only is the Makkah coming and being Makkah es Mitzrayim, but there's a Giloi that all of everything that exists in the world is Echad, Hashem Echad, Hu Elokeinu Ein Oid, the Eish and the Mayim mixed together. And Rabbi say this is also the idea. I started to tell you last week. I think I have enough time. I started to tell you last week, but this is also the idea of what happened years later when the Yidden had a certain complaint, and because of their complaint, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent snakes to bite them, Nechashim, to bite them, and they were dying from the snake bites. So Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, make a snake, Aseh lecha saraf, make a snake, and use that snake to point upwards, so the Yidden will look up at the snake and they'll remember Hashem and they'll heal. So last week we said one level. Last week we said that this is mamish the point. The point is the snake itself is pointing up. The idea is the snake itself is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't think it's something separate. The snake itself is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The deeper point is there's a concept of Neis b'Seich Neis, because Moshe Rabbeinu chose which material to use for that snake. Which material did he choose? Why did he choose Nechashis? Lashon, Neufel Lashon. Because Moshe Rabbeinu wanted Nechash HaNechashis. That's the inyan of a Neis b'Seich Neis. In other words, it's not just that it's Ra. It's not just that HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls the Ra. It's that there is no Ra. It's the musig of a Neis b'Seich Neis. It's not just a Nachash, it's Nechash HaNechash, like the Nachash of the Nachash. It's the Pnimius of the Nachash. Lashon Neufel al Lashon. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring those Nechashim for? What was the Aver? Do you remember? Parshas Chukas. What did the Klal Yisrael do wrong? What? No. What? Yeah, what were they complaining about? What were they complaining about? Vayidaber ha'am be'elokim u'v'Moshe lama he'elisunu mi'Mitzrayim lamos ba'midbar ki ein lechem ve'ein mayim v'nafshenu kotza ba'lechem ha'keloikel. What does that mean? The man. They were rejecting the man. Our nefesh is kotza, is disgusted b'lechem ha'keloikel. What was their taina? What's the taina of nafshenu kotza b'lechem ha'keloikel? The taina was that the man was such an unbelievable food that there was no waste. There was no waste products from the food. So they said, how could that be? There's no such a thing that food could not have a waste product. At some point, we're going to explode. That's what they said, which obviously needs a pshat. You know, it couldn't be Pashup Pshat. They actually thought that one day there's just going to be these random explosions in the Machaneh Yisrael. You know, like there must be some pshat here. What they were trying to say. I want to tell you something amazing. Okay. In Parshas Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu gives Teichacha to Klal Yisrael, and he refers to this Aveira of saying Nafshenu Katza B'Lechem HaKeloikel. How does he refer to it? He uses one word, Lavan, white. Beginning of Parshas Devarim. Bein Paran uvein Teufel v'Lavan. Bein Paran uvein, no, it's Teufel v'Lavan, I should say. Bein Paran uvein Teufel v'Lavan v'Chatzeros v'Di Zahav. What's Teufel v'Lavan? Teufel v'Lavan is Shetaflu al Haman shehu Lavan. They complained about the man which is white. She'omru nafshenu katze b'lechem hakeloikel. By the way, white might mean clear, but nafshenu katze b'lechem hakeloikel, right? It's called white. Why is the Aveira? Why is you ever heard of the man being called white any other place? I mean, it calls it Zera Gad Lavan, but when it's describing it, but like, You ever had a time that there was discussions about money? We call it Lavan. This is a unique place, right? We call it the white. Taifel v'Lavan, the white stuff. Why here is it called the white stuff? You know what the pshat is? Because why was the man had lamashal? The man you were able to be tayyim all the time in, right? You could taste all the tastes. Why could you taste all the tastes of the man? Why? It's magical? What's the pshat? The pshat is that the man was the food that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's Hashem Echad, gave us the man. The man represents the limitlessness, the totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Nesina. It's kailul everything. It's everything mixed together. It's the whole package of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. Now, when you take all the colors and you mix them together, what do you get? White. You get white, or clear maybe, depending. Because the prism, that's why I said clear. But okay, Dr. Hack and I can discuss, Rabbi Dr. Hack and I can discuss it after. Both the rabbi part and the doctor part. But the point is that the man is a unified food. It's a whole food. It's the totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's shefa. It's the shefa of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Ramban calls it the Or HaGanuz that was Nizgashim. You know that? Rabbanim B'Shalach calls it the Or HaGanuz that was Nizgashim. So the point is, you know why the man was Machnes ve'enai maitzi? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Hashem Echad. All foods have a good part and a bad part, because Olam Hazeh has good and bad in it. And because part of our life is to try to ingest the good and get rid of the bad. That's what life is about. But the food that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives, there's no such a thing as bad. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu Elokeinu Einoi. There is no bad. That's what the man is. Do you understand what happened here? Klal Yisrael complained about the man using words that show that they had no appreciation, that the reason that the man acts as it does is because there is no bad by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're saying, why isn't it Maitzi? There is no bad. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Nechashim to them, that the whole way to heal from it is to look at a Nachash. Oh, that's a lesson. I'm going to look at a Nachash and I'm going to get healed? Yeah, because there is no bad. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You see the Midah Keneged Midah? Klal Yisrael says, Nafshenu katze belechem hakeleikel, and the answer to that is the Nachash HaNachashes. That's the cure for it, is to recognize, no, it's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that, Rabbi say, is our mission and our chizuk and our emunah, even as we go through sometimes challenging or difficult times, whether it's personal or communal or Klal Yisrael level, is that the very, very, very strong importance of, we're not Moshe Rabbeinu's, we don't live in a world where we see with clarity that there's nothing else besides for Hashem. But how much of a chizuk it is for us to remind ourselves that there's nothing else besides for Hashem. You know, I said over on Leil Shabbos that there's a machlokes in Siman Hey, there's a machlokes the Mechaber and the Gra, if when you read the Shem Havaya, if you should have in mind only that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Adayin HaKoil, or if you also have to have in mind that he's Haya Hay V'Viyah. In other words, when you read the Shem Havaya, do you have to have in mind the Ksiva or just the Kriya? The Mechaber holds that you should have both in mind, and the Gra holds that you may only have it's also okay to only have, even though there's very deep things that you could think about, but you only have to have the Hashem is the Adayin Kol. So we were saying that a little bit this is the discussion, because it's hard to shtel tzu to the Ksiva part. I'm not saying that's pshat in the machlokes, but I'm just pointing out that this is an area of challenge for us. That the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Adayin Kol, that's something we could be masig. The fact that there is no Ra, that's hard for us to wrap our heads around, so that the Gra says that you don't have to have in mind. Okay, I mentioned that on Leil Shabbos. But what I want to be moisif now, and I said it privately to some people on Leil Shabbos, is that there is an exception to the Gra. There's a time that the Gra says you do have to have in mind. When is that? When you say Shema Yisrael. When you say Shema Yisrael, you cover your eyes. and you say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. There's only Hashem. Echad is Hu Elokeinu, Ein Oid. We close our eyes, the Sfarim say, because it's not the world we live in. That's not what we see. We have to close our eyes. I don't see that. That's not what I'm seeing. But then when I'm holding and saying Shema, then I do have in mind not only Adoin Kol, but also Hayahai V'Viyeh. But that, Rabbi say, is our job. If we have a din twice a day to say Shema, what that means is that twice a day we're mechazik ourselves. Yes, I don't live in a world that I see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the threat of Iran. I don't live in a world that I see HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I'm dealing with a medical challenge. I don't live in a world where I see HaKadosh Baruch Hu when there's an internal struggle that I have. That's not the world I live in. But twice a day, I put my hand over my eyes and I remind myself that that is the case. I remind myself that I live in Hashem's world and that He's behind everything. The Sfarim say that one of the reasons that we're not supposed to take nekama, if somebody ba'avels us, we don't take nekama, is because we recognize it didn't come from Him, it came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's ridiculous, it's a waste of emotions to blame that person, it's irrelevant. It's all about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's part of this Hakara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is behind, of course, all the wonderful brachas that we have in our lives, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is equally behind, with the same hatava, is behind all the challenging things in our lives on every single level. We should be zaycha to be able to be yoinek, to be able to draw strength from that yediyah, from that emunah. Yashikayach.